Most husbands bring flowers when their wife delivers a healthy baby boy. Ethan brought a manila folder. My son was less than 12 hours old, sleeping in the plastic bassinet. When Ethan walked into my hospital room wearing his charcoal business suit, he didn't kiss my forehead or ask about the stitches. He just placed the divorce papers on the rolling tray table, right next to my apple juice, and told me he was done. The pain was not a sharp thing anymore. It had become a dull, throbbing bass note that lived in the center of my hips, radiating outward into my spine and down my legs. I lay in the recovery bed at Northgate Memorial Hospital, the sheets roughly textured against my skin. Smelling of antiseptic and industrial laundry detergent, the room was dim, lit only by the monitor lights and the pale gray dawn filtering through the heavy curtains. In the plastic bassinet next to me slept a tiny, wrapped bundle. My son. He was less than 12 hours old. We had named him Leo, or at least, I had whispered the name to him while the nurses wiped him down. Ethan had not been there to agree to it. I shifted, wincing as the stitches pulled. The birth had been difficult, 20 hours of labor that stalled and started, peaked and crashed. I remembered gripping the bed rails, my knuckles white, sweating through my gown, looking toward the door every time it opened, expecting to see my husband. Ethan had been there in body, mostly. He sat in the corner chair, the one upholstered in cracked blue vinyl, tapping furiously on his phone. Every time a contraction seized me, he would look up, his eyes glazed with distraction, and offer a weak smile before looking back down. "Just a work crisis," he had said. "Investor emergency." I had believed him because I had to. You do not want to believe that the man you have loved for 7 years is checking sports scores or texting a friend while you are pushing a human being into the world. You tell yourself that the burden of provision is heavy, that he is stressed about the hospital bills, that he is handling the world outside so you can handle the world inside this room. I reached out and touched the clear plastic side of the bassinet. Leo let out a soft, bird-like sigh. He was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a shock of dark hair that matched his father's. The door to the hospital room clicked open. I turned my head, expecting a nurse with a blood pressure cuff or a lactation consultant with a clipboard. It was Ethan. My heart gave a little jump, a reflex of affection that I had not yet learned to suppress. He looked impeccable. He was not wearing the sweatpants and t-shirt he had had on yesterday. He was wearing his charcoal gray suit, the one he wore for board meetings at Hawthorne Ridge Capital. His white shirt was crisp, his tie knotted with geometric precision. He looked like he had just come from a dry cleaner, not a night on a hospital cot. In fact, he had not stayed the night. He had left 2 hours after Leo was born, citing a migraine and the need to feed our cat, a creature that had an automatic feeder. I had told him to go. I had wanted to be the supportive wife. "Hey," I croaked. My voice was wrecked from screaming. Ethan did not smile. He walked into the room with a strange, stiff gait, avoiding the bassinet entirely. He came to the side of my bed. He did not kiss me. He did not touch my hand. He looked at the rolling tray table where my pitcher of ice water and a cup of apple juice sat. He placed a manila folder on the tray. The sound of the folder hitting the plastic surface was soft, a quiet slap that sounded louder than it should have in the stillness of the room. I looked at it, then up at him. "What is this?" I asked. "Did you bring the insurance forms?" "No," Ethan said. His voice was clear, steady. It lacked the rasp of exhaustion that I felt in my own throat. "Leah, look at me." I looked at him. His eyes were blue, a shade I used to compare to summer sky, but now they looked like flat glass. "I cannot do this anymore," he said. I blinked. The words did not compute. It was like he was speaking a foreign language. "Do what?" I asked. "The baby is sleeping." "Ethan, you do not have to do anything right now. I am not talking about the baby," he said. "I am talking about us." He tapped the folder with his index finger. "I have filed for divorce. Leah, the papers are in there. I wanted you to have them immediately so we can start the process." The air left the room. My ears started to ring, a high-pitched whine that drowned out the hum of the air conditioner. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. This had to be a joke. A terrible, dark, sleep-deprived joke. "Ethan," I said, forcing a laugh that sounded like a cough. "We just had a baby. Yesterday. I know," he said, "and I'm sorry about the timing. Truly. But there is never a good time for this, is there? I thought it would be better to do it now. Clean break. New chapter." He was speaking in bullet points. He was speaking the way he spoke to underperforming junior analysts at his firm. I tried to sit up, but the pain in my lower body flared, pinning me back against the pillows. I felt a sudden, hot rush of shame. I was wearing a hospital gown that opened in the back. I was wearing a mesh diaper. My hair was matted with sweat. I was bleeding, and my husband was standing over me in a $2,000 suit, firing me from my marriage. "You are leaving me?" I whispered. "Now?" "It has been coming for a long time." "Leah," he said. He crossed his arms over his chest, a defensive posture. "I have not been happy. We have grown apart. You have been so focused on the pregnancy, and I have been focused on work. We are on different paths." "Different paths?" I repeated. "Ethan, you kissed my forehead last night before you left. You told me good job." "I was trying to be supportive during a medical event," he said, as if describing a transaction. "But I cannot fake it anymore. It is not fair to you, and it is not fair to me." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, glancing at the screen before sliding it back. "I want this to be amicable," he said. "I have outlined a preliminary separation agreement. I will cover the immediate expenses. I will make it smooth. You will not have to worry about the rent on the apartment for the next 3 months." 3 months? I stared at him. "We own a house, Ethan. We will discuss the house later," he said quickly. Too quickly. "The point is, I am trying to be generous here. I know you are emotional right now." "Emotional?" I felt the trembling start in my hands. It traveled up my arms and settled in my jaw. I was shaking. It was a physical shock reaction, the kind victims get after a car crash. "I just pushed your son out of my body," I said. My voice was rising, cracking. "You are divorcing me in a recovery room?" "Lower your voice, Leah," he said, glancing at the open door. "Please, let us be adults about this." He looked at the bassinet then. For the first time, he looked at Leo. Not with love, but with a strange, detached curiosity, like one might look at a piece of abstract art they did not quite understand. "I will let you review the papers," he said. "I have a meeting I cannot miss. I just wanted to be honest with you." Honest. The word hung in the air, heavy and false. He turned to leave. "Ethan," I said. He stopped, his hand on the door handle. He did not turn back around. "If you walk out that door," I said, "do not expect to come back and play happy family when it suits you. I am not expecting that." "Leah," he said, "that is the point." And then he was gone. I sat in the silence for a long time. The ringing in my ears faded, replaced by the sound of my own ragged breathing. I looked at the manila folder. I did not touch it. I felt that if I touched it, it would become real. If I left it there, maybe I could wake up, and this would just be a nightmare born of anesthesia and hormones. But the folder stayed there. 10 minutes later, the baby started to cry. I had to wipe my eyes with the back of my hand, grip my teeth against the pain in my abdomen, and lift my son out of the bassinet. I held him against my chest, feeling his tiny heart beating against mine. "I am here." I whispered to him, "I am here." But I was not sure where here was anymore. By noon, the shock had begun to curdle into a sick, heavy dread. My best friend, Callie, arrived at 1 o'clock. She came in like a whirlwind of bright colors and noise, carrying a bouquet of hydrangeas and a massive bag of bagels. "Look at this little peanut," she squealed. Dropping her bags on the chair Ethan had vacated, she rushed to the bed, her eyes tearing up. "Leah, he is beautiful. He looks just like—" She stopped. She looked around the room. "Where is Ethan?" she asked. "Is he getting coffee?" I felt my throat close up. I could not say it. I pointed to the folder on the tray. Callie frowned. She picked up the folder. She opened it. I watched her face as she read the first page. Her expression went from confusion to disbelief to pure, unadulterated fury. Her mouth opened, then snapped shut. "Is this a joke?" she asked. "No," I whispered. "He brought this here? Today? This morning." Callie threw the folder back onto the table. It slid across the surface and hit the water pitcher. "I am going to kill him," she said. Her voice was low and dangerous. "I am going to find him, and I am going to dismantle him." "Don't," I said. I felt tired. So incredibly tired. "Just help me with the baby? I need to use the bathroom and I cannot put him down." Callie softened immediately. She scooped Leo up, cradling him expertly. "I have got him," she said. "Go, take your time." When I came back from the bathroom, moving with the slow shuffle of the injured, Callie was taking photos of Leo with her phone. "We need to document this," she said. "First day on Earth. He's going to want to see these later." The door opened again. Ethan was back. He walked in, still in the suit. Though the tie was loosened slightly now, he stopped when he saw Callie. A flicker of annoyance crossed his face, followed by a mask of polite neutrality. "Callie," he said, "I did not know you were visiting. You missed the memo?" Callie said, not looking up from the baby. "I am the other parent now." "Apparently, since you resigned." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Leah, can I speak to you?" "Alone?" "No," I said. I climbed back into the bed, pulling the sheet up to my chin. "Anything you have to say, you can say in front of Callie." Ethan sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. He looked like a man dealing with a difficult vendor, not a wife he had just shattered. "I just came to drop off the car seat," he said. "It is in the hallway. And to bring you this." He set a phone charger bag on the chair. "You asked for the long cable yesterday." He said, "Thank you," I said automatically. The habit of politeness was hard to break. Ethan lingered for a moment. He looked at Callie, who was holding the phone up, framing a shot of Leo. "Say cheese, little man," Callie cooed. Ethan flinched. It was a small movement, a slight recoil of his head, as if the camera lens was a weapon. He took a half-step back toward the door. "I have to go," he said. "I will come by tomorrow to discuss the discharge plan." He turned and walked out before I could answer. Callie lowered her phone. She looked at the empty doorway, then at me. "Did you see that?" she asked. "See what?" He looked terrified. She said, "When I pointed the camera, like he was afraid I was going to capture his soul. Or evidence." "Evidence of what?" I asked. "Being a jerk?" Callie shook her head. "I do not know. Leah." But that was not just a, "I am a bad husband" face. That was a, "I have secrets" face. I looked at the door. I wanted to dismiss it. I wanted to believe that Ethan was just overwhelmed, having a midlife crisis at 35, panicking about fatherhood. But the way he had looked at the camera, it stayed with me. Night fell over Harbor Ridge. The hospital quieted down. The noises of the day replaced by the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the squeak of rubber soles in the hallway. Callie had left at 8, promising to return first thing in the morning. I was alone with Leo again. I tried to sleep, but my mind was a hamster wheel of panic. How would I pay the mortgage? How would I find childcare? How would I tell my parents? I reached for my phone to check the time. The screen was black. Dead battery. I groaned. I had forgotten to plug it in. I looked at the chair where Ethan had dropped the charger bag. It was a small, black, zippered pouch he usually kept in his gym bag or his briefcase. I needed the cable. I slid my legs over the side of the bed, gritting my teeth against the soreness. I shuffled over to the chair and picked up the pouch. It was heavy. I unzipped it. Inside, tangled among the white cords and power bricks, was a phone. It was not Ethan's usual phone. His phone was a sleek, silver model in a leather case. This one was older. A black rectangle with a cracked screen protector. I frowned. I had never seen this phone before. I took it out. I pressed the side button. The screen lit up. It was locked, but the notifications were visible on the home screen. There was one new message. Received 20 minutes ago. The sender was saved simply as B. The message read, "Is it done? Are you free?" I stared at the glowing text. The letters seemed to swim before my eyes. Is it done? The divorce, the mercy speech, the timing. Are you free? My hands started shaking again, harder this time. I almost dropped the phone. I sat down on the edge of the awful blue vinyl chair. My breath was coming in short, shallow gasps. This was not a panic attack about fatherhood. This was not a sudden realization that we had grown apart. This was a woman. Or a man? No. B likely stood for a name, a woman's name. I looked at the time on the screen. 9:30 at night. Ethan had told me he was going to his parents' house to sleep, but B was asking if he was free. I felt a wave of nausea so strong I thought I might vomit on the hospital floor. I needed to know. I needed to unlock it. I tried Ethan's usual passcode, 1234. Incorrect. I tried his birthday. Incorrect. I tried the last 4 digits of his social security number. Incorrect. The phone vibrated in my hand. Another message from B. I am waiting at the loft. Champagne is on ice. The loft? What loft? I felt like the floor had opened up and swallowed me whole. He wasn't just leaving me. He was going to her. Right now, while I sat in a hospital room bleeding into a mesh diaper next to his newborn son. I looked at the camera icon in the bottom corner of the locked screen. I couldn't unlock the phone, but I could take a picture of the notifications. I scrambled back to the bed, grabbed my dead phone, and plugged it into the wall with shaking hands. It took 2 agonizing minutes to reboot. While I waited, I stared at the burner phone. It felt radioactive. When my phone finally came back to life, I took a photo of the burner phone's screen. I captured the messages from B. Clearly. Is it done? Are you free? I am waiting at the loft. Champagne is on ice. I checked the timestamp. I checked the date. Then, carefully, with the precision of a bomb disposal technician, I wiped my fingerprints off the burner phone's screen with the edge of my hospital gown. I placed it back inside the charger pouch. I wound the cords around it exactly as they had been. I zipped the pouch shut. I put it back on the chair. In the exact position I had found it. I did not smash it. I did not text B back. I was too raw for rage. I was in survival mode. I knew, instinctively, that knowledge was the only weapon I had left. Ethan thought I was weak. He thought I was a broken, hormonal mess who would sign whatever he put in front of me just to make the pain stop. If he knew I had found the phone, he would hide everything. He would delete the evidence. He would spin a story. I crawled back into the hospital bed. I pulled the blankets up. I looked at Leo, sleeping peacefully in his bassinet, oblivious to the fact that his father was currently drinking champagne with someone else. I did not sleep that night. I lay awake, listening to the hum of the machines, watching the door, waiting. Ethan returned the next morning at 10. He looked refreshed. He smelled of expensive soap and peppermint. He did not look like a man who had spent the night on his parents' pull-out couch. He walked in with a folder under his arm, a different one this time. "Good morning," he said. He sounded cheerful, forced, but cheerful. "Good morning," I said. My voice was flat. I kept my face blank. "I brought the charger bag," he said, glancing at the chair. "Oh, good. You found it." I nodded. "Yes, thanks." He picked up the bag without opening it and shoved it into his briefcase. He did not check it. He did not seem to realize he had left his secret life sitting on a vinyl chair in a maternity ward. Arrogance, I realized. He was so sure of his control over the situation that he had become sloppy. He sat on the edge of the bed. He opened the new folder. "I wanted to show you this," he said. "It is a draft of the custody schedule." He handed me a sheet of paper. It was a color-coded calendar. It was detailed. It had holidays marked out for the next 2 years. It had pick-up and drop-off times. It had a clause about right of first refusal and holiday alternation. I looked at the document. "You wrote this since yesterday?" I asked. He hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Yes, I was up late working on it. I wanted to make sure we had a structure. For the baby's sake, I looked at the formatting. It was professional. The font was specific. The margins were perfect. This was not something typed up at midnight on a laptop. This was a legal document that had been drafted, revised, and finalized days, maybe weeks ago. He had been planning this while I was painting the nursery. He had been planning this while we were picking out car seats. He had a plan. He had a timeline. He had a B, and I was supposed to be the collateral damage. I looked up at him. I saw the faint shadow of a bruise on his neck, covered with concealer. It was subtle, but I knew his skin. I knew where to look. He smiled at me, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I just want what is best for everyone. Leah, he said. I forced the corners of my mouth up. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, I know. Ethan, I said, I appreciate you being so organized. He relaxed. His shoulders dropped an inch. He thought he had won. He thought I was buying the Mercy Act. I handed the paper back to him. I will need some time to read it. I said, I am still a little foggy from the medication. Of course, he said. Take your time. He stood up, checking his watch. I have a meeting at the firm, he said. I will come back this evening to check on you. Okay, I said. He walked to the door. Ethan? I called out. He turned. Yeah? Did you get any sleep last night? You look rested. He blinked. Oh, yeah. My parents' place is quiet. I slept like a rock. Good, I said. That is good. He left. As soon as the door clicked shut, the tears finally stopped. The fear evaporated, replaced by something cold and hard in the pit of my stomach. He had a head start. He had the money. He had the lawyers. But he had made one mistake. He thought I was the woman he married. Sweet, accommodating, trusting Leah. He didn't know that woman had died the moment he put that folder on my tray. The woman in the bed now was someone else entirely, and she had a screenshot. I picked up my phone. I dialed the number for the only person I knew who wouldn't tell me to just breathe. Marianne. I said when my aunt answered, do not tell Mom yet, but I need the name of that shark lawyer you used for your second divorce, the one who made your ex cry in the deposition. There was a pause on the line. Then, Marianne's voice, sharp and ready. Rena Delgado, she said. I will text you her number. What did he do? Honey? He planned it, I said, looking at the empty space where my husband should have been. He planned it all. I hung up the phone and looked at Leo. I am going to fix this, I told him, and for the first time in 24 hours, I believed it. Leaving the hospital was supposed to be a victory lap. You are supposed to be wheeled out in a wheelchair, holding your bundle of joy, while your husband pulls the car around, the engine idling warm and safe. You are supposed to drive home to the house you painted together, to the crib you assembled on a Sunday afternoon while listening to jazz. That was the commercial. My reality was a gray Tuesday morning, a headache that sat behind my eyes like a rusted nail, and my best friend Callie wrestling a car seat into the back of her SUV because my husband was not there. Ethan had texted. He was tied up in a compliance audit. He had sent an Uber Black, as if a stranger in a luxury sedan could replace the father of my child. I had canceled it. I would rather walk home on broken glass than sit in the back of a silent car paid for by Ethan's guilt money. We did not go home. I could not go back to the house on Elm Street, the one with the nursery painted sage green. Ethan was there, or he wasn't, but his ghost was in every room. The thought of seeing his shoes by the door or his coffee mug in the sink made my chest tighten until I could not breathe. Instead, we went to a short-term rental in Harbor Ridge. It was a serviced apartment my Aunt Marianne had found and paid for before I could argue. It was on the third floor of a brick building near the waterfront. It was clean, beige, and smelled of lemon polish and nothingness. It was perfect because it held no memories. For the first 3 days, time dissolved. Day and night became a blur of feeding schedules, diaper changes, and the terrifying, beautiful responsibility of keeping Leo alive. I moved through the apartment like a ghost, wearing sweatpants and nursing tanks, my hair tied up in a messy knot. My body was a landscape of pain. The recovery from the birth was slow. I was bleeding, sore, and exhausted in a way that felt cellular, as if my very bones were tired. Callie stayed on the couch. Aunt Marianne came by every morning with casseroles and laundry detergent. They built a wall of noise and activity around me, trying to keep the silence out, but the silence always found a way in. It came through my phone. Ethan did not call. He did not ask to FaceTime Leo. Instead, he performed fatherhood through text messages, little blue bubbles that popped up on my screen with maddening regularity. I transferred $5,000 to your personal checking. One message read, "Let me know if you need more for the baby supplies. I want to be fair." Another said 3 hours later, "I hope you are getting rest. My lawyer will be sending over a draft of the separation agreement. Please review it when you can." He was managing me. He was handling the Leah problem with the same efficiency he handled a portfolio correction. Throw money at it. Keep the communication written and traceable. Avoid direct contact. I did not reply. I let the money sit in the account. I felt that if I spent a dime of it, I was agreeing to his terms. I was accepting that this was the price of my marriage. $5,000 and a hope you are resting. On the fourth day, I put on real clothes. A pair of loose linen trousers and a button-down shirt that hid the softness of my postpartum stomach. I put on concealer to hide the purple shadows under my eyes. I have an appointment, I told Callie. With the pediatrician? She asked, looking up from her laptop. No, I said, with a shark. The offices of Sable Finch LLP were located in a glass tower downtown. 3 blocks from Ethan's firm, the waiting room was silent and expensive, decorated with abstract art that looked like violent slashes of red and black paint. Rena Delgado did not look like a shark. She looked like a librarian who did CrossFit. She was 50, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob, and glasses that framed eyes that missed nothing. She did not offer me tea or sympathy. She offered me a seat and a legal pad. I told her everything: the birth, the folder, the burner phone, the timing. Rena listened without interrupting. She took notes with a fountain pen, her hand moving in quick, jagged strokes. When I finished, she capped the pen and looked at me. "You are in shock," she said. "That is normal. But we do not have time for shock. We have to talk about strategy." She opened a file on her desk. "Ethan's legal team has already filed for temporary orders," she said. "Do you know what those are?" I shook my head. "They are the rules of engagement while the divorce is pending." Rena explained. "Who lives where? Who pays for what? Custody schedules. Usually. These are standard, but Ethan has filed aggressively." She slid a document across the polished mahogany desk. "He is requesting primary physical custody of the infant," she said. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands gripped the arms of the chair. "He wants Leo?" I asked. "He barely looked at him in the hospital. He has never changed a diaper. He is not asking for custody because he wants to change diapers," Rena said, her voice dry. "He is asking because he wants to control the narrative. Look at the language here." She pointed to a paragraph on the second page. "Petitioner requests primary custody due to respondent's current medical and emotional instability. Respondent is reportedly overwhelmed and unable to provide a structured environment." I stared at the words. Emotionally unstable, overwhelmed. "He is using my postpartum recovery against me." I whispered. "Exactly," Rena said. "He is painting a picture for the judge. He is the structured, high-earning, stable provider. You are the hormonal, emotional, unemployed mother who is barely holding it together. If he gets temporary custody, he sets the status quo, and judges hate to change the status quo." I felt a surge of rage so hot it burned my throat. I thought about the bruises on my heart, the stitches in my body, the sleepless nights holding Leo while Ethan slept in a loft with B. He abandoned us. I said, "He left me in a hospital room. The court does not care about feelings." "Leah," Rena said, "the court cares about facts. The court cares about timelines. And right now, Ethan is winning the timeline." She leaned forward. "We need to file a counter motion immediately. We need to show that you are competent, stable, and the primary caregiver, but more importantly, we need to understand why he is doing this so fast. Men like Ethan Simmons do not blow up their lives on a Tuesday morning without a reason." She tapped her pen on the desk. "Is there money? Real money?" "We do okay." I said. Ethan makes good bonuses. I am not talking about salary, Rena said. I'm talking about assets. Hidden assets. If he is rushing this, he is trying to close the door on something before you look inside. She handed me a checklist. I need you to become a forensic accountant. Leah, I need credit card statements, bank transfers, investment reports. Go back 2 years. Look for anything that does not make sense. I took the list. It felt heavy. I can do that. I said, good, Rena said. And Leah? I looked up. Stop crying, she said. I had not realized I was crying until I felt the wetness on my cheek. Tears are for funerals, she said. This is a war, that night. After Leo finally settled into a milk-drunk sleep, I opened my laptop. The rental apartment was dark, lit only by the blue glow of the screen. I logged into our joint bank accounts. Ethan had not changed the passwords yet, another sign of his arrogance. He assumed I was too busy crying to look at the numbers. I downloaded 12 months of statements. I opened a spreadsheet. At first, everything looked normal. Mortgage payments, utilities, groceries, the mundane transactions of a life I thought was happy. But then I saw it. A transfer of $2,000 in March, labeled consulting, HRC. I frowned. HRC stood for Hawthorne Ridge Capital, his firm. But Ethan was a partner. He didn't pay for consulting out of our joint checking account. The firm paid expenses. I searched for the label. There were 6 more. April, May, June. The amounts varied. $1,500, $3,000, $2,000, all to an external account number I did not recognize. I moved to the credit card statements, the American Express Platinum that we used for travel and large purchases. I scanned the list of charges, restaurants, gas, Amazon, and then a charge from 2 months ago, the Ophelia Hotel, Harbor Ridge, $450. I froze. The Ophelia was a boutique hotel downtown. It was 10 minutes from our house. Why would Ethan stay at a hotel 10 minutes from our house on a Tuesday night in May? I checked my calendar on my phone. I scrolled back to May. Tuesday, May 14th. I had a notation. Ethan, late meeting with investors. Dinner in city. He hadn't been in the city. He had been 10 minutes away, in a room with Egyptian cotton sheets and a view of the harbor. I felt sick, but this time, the nausea was different. It was fuel. I kept digging. I found jewelry purchases, a bracelet from a designer I did not wear, a spa gift card for $500 that I had never received. I printed everything. I highlighted the dates. I made a folder on my desktop named Evidence. My phone buzzed on the table. It was late, almost 11. I looked at the screen. It was a text from Sarah, a friend of mine whose husband worked in compliance at Hawthorne Ridge. We weren't close, but we ran in the same circles. Hey, Leah. The text read, I heard about the baby. Congratulations. I also heard about the other stuff. I am so sorry. I hesitated, then typed back. Thanks, Sarah. It has been a rough week. 3 dots danced on the screen for a long time. Then, I shouldn't say this, but I thought you should know. Ethan has been visible. He was at the firm's closing dinner last night at the Standard. He brought someone. My heart hammered against my ribs. Who? I don't know her name, Sarah replied. Tall, blonde, works in branding, I think. He was introducing her to people, acting like it was normal, like they were a couple. I stared at the phone. He wasn't just hiding an affair. He was launching a new life. He was parading her around his colleagues less than a week after his wife gave birth. He was celebrating. The audacity of it was breathtaking. It was cleaner than cruelty. It was erasure. He had simply decided I no longer existed, and therefore, he was free to exist with her. I thanked Sarah and closed the chat. I needed a name. I needed a face. And I needed proof that B and the blonde branding woman were the same person, and that they had been together long before Leo was born. I opened a new browser tab. I searched for Private Investigators Harbor Ridge. I did not click on the ones that promised to catch cheaters with bright red fonts. I looked for the ones that advertised litigation support and asset tracing. I found a firm called Vanguard Investigations. Their website was minimal, a phone number and a promise of discretion. I sent an email. Subject: Inquiry regarding surveillance and timeline reconstruction. Body: I need to establish a cohabitation and infidelity timeline for a divorce proceeding. The subject is a high net worth individual. I do not need drama. I need receipts. Please contact me. I hit send. Then I went to the crib and looked at my son. He is not going to take you. I whispered to the sleeping baby. He is not going to win. 2 days later, I met Noah Hart. The appointment was for Leo's 1-week checkup. I was dreading it. I was dreading the pitying looks from the nurses when they saw Father Ethan Simmons on the form, but no Ethan in the room. I was dreading the questions about how I was coping. The clinic was bright and cheerful, painted in primary colors. I sat in the exam room, bouncing Leo on my knee, trying to keep him from crying. I was wearing jeans that were too tight, and a sweater that had a small stain of spit up on the shoulder that I hadn't noticed until I was in the car. The door opened and a man walked in. He was not the old, white-haired doctor I had expected. He was young, maybe 35. He had dark, curly hair and warm brown eyes. He was wearing scrubs with cartoon dinosaurs on them, but he didn't look ridiculous. He looked steady. "Mrs. Simmons?" he asked. "I am Dr. Hart, Leah." I said, "Just Leah." "Okay, Leah," he said, "and this must be Leo." He didn't look at the clipboard. He looked at the baby. He smiled, a genuine, easy smile that made his eyes crinkle at the corners. He washed his hands and approached us. He was gentle. He checked Leo's reflexes, listened to his heart, measured his head circumference. He spoke to Leo the whole time, narrating what he was doing in a soft, calm voice. "He is perfect." "Doctor," Hart said, lifting Leo onto the scale, "gained 3 ounces. That is excellent. You are doing a great job with the feeding." I felt a lump form in my throat. "I feel like I'm doing everything wrong," I admitted. The words slipped out before I could stop them. "Doctor," Hart turned to look at me. He didn't give me the pity face. He looked at me with a serious, assessing gaze. "Why do you say that?" he asked. I am tired." I said, "I am alone. My husband left the day Leo was born." I waited for the shock, the awkward pause. Dr. Hart didn't flinch. "I am sorry to hear that," he said. "That is an incredibly heavy thing to carry." He handed Leo back to me. "But I look at this baby," he said, "and I see a child who is clean, fed, gaining weight, and securely attached. I see a mother who got him here on time despite everything." He leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. "You are exhausted. Leah, that is biology, but you are not failing. You are capable. I can see it. Capable." The word landed in the center of my chest. Ethan had called me overwhelmed. He had called me unstable. This stranger, this man with dinosaurs on his shirt, saw me. "Thank you," I whispered. He nodded. "If you need anything," he said, "resources, support groups, or just a quiet place to sit for 5 minutes because the baby is screaming, you call the office. We are on your team." I walked out of that office feeling taller. I wasn't just a victim. I was Leo's mother, and I was capable. The days turned into a week. The routine solidified. Wake up, feed Leo, call the lawyer, email the private investigator, feed Leo, dig through financial records. Sleep for 2 hours. Repeat. The private investigator, a man named Silas who spoke in monosyllables, was making progress. He had found the woman. Her name was Brooke Calder. She was 28. She was a brand strategist who had consulted for Hawthorne Ridge Capital for the last 8 months. 8 months. The exact duration of my 3rd trimester and the final difficult months of my pregnancy. Silas sent me a preliminary report. Photos of them at lunch. Photos of his car parked outside her apartment complex. The loft mentioned in the text. Overnight. It was the smoking gun. But Rena, my lawyer, had warned me. Infidelity matters. But in Massachusetts, it is not the silver bullet you think it is. Unless we can prove he spent marital assets on her, I had the hotel charge. I had the consulting fees. It was a start. But I needed more leverage. I needed something that would make Ethan afraid. On a Tuesday night, exactly 2 weeks after the birth, I was looking for Leo's birth certificate. I needed it for the insurance paperwork. I opened the heavy fireproof lockbox I had taken from the house during the initial move. I had grabbed it instinctively, knowing it held our passports and deeds. I shuffled through the papers, house title, car titles, marriage license, and then, at the bottom, a thick document stapled in blue paper. Post-nuptial agreement. I froze. I remembered this, vaguely, 3 years ago. Ethan and I had hit a rough patch. He had made a bad investment that lost a significant amount of our savings. I had been furious. We had almost separated then, to reconcile. His father, a practical man who didn't believe in leaving things to chance, had insisted we sign a postnup to clarify our assets and rebuild trust. I hadn't looked at it since the day we signed it in a notary's office in downtown Boston. I remembered thinking it was just paperwork, a formality to make his family feel secure about the inheritance. I opened it. I scanned the legalese. Article 4, disposition of assets. Article 5, spousal support. And then, Article 7, conduct and fidelity. I read the clause. My breath hitched. In the event that the dissolution of marriage is initiated by either party within 12 months of the birth of a child born to the marriage. I kept reading. And if said dissolution is precipitated by verified infidelity or abandonment on the part of the higher-earning spouse, my eyes widened. Then the asset division regarding the Hawthorne Ridge Capital Partnership interest and all associated trusts shall bypass standard equitable distribution and be subject to a penalty transfer of 40% of the unvested value to the custodial parent. In addition to standard support, I read it again and again. I remembered now. My lawyer at the time, a friend of my father's, had insisted on it. He had said, "Ethan is a finance guy. He understands risk. Make the risk of leaving you when you are vulnerable so high that he never does it." Ethan had signed it. He had laughed when he signed it. He had said, "I am never going to leave you, Leah, especially not when we have a kid. This is just paper." Now, that paper was a sword. He had forgotten, I was sure of it, in his arrogance, in his rush to be with Brooke, in his carefully constructed plan to paint me as unstable. He had forgotten the landmine he had planted 3 years ago. If I could prove infidelity, verified, documented infidelity, and abandonment within the first year of birth, I didn't just get half the house. I got a piece of his firm. I got a piece of his identity. I sat back on the floor of the rental apartment. The carpet was scratchy against my legs. The tears were gone completely now. Ethan thought he was divorcing a sad, tired, heartbroken wife. He thought he was managing a problem. He didn't know he was about to go to war with a woman who held the map to his destruction. I picked up my phone and took a picture of Article 7. I texted it to Rena. I found something. I typed. Then I closed the lockbox. The metal click sounded like the cocking of a gun. I went to the window and looked out at the lights of Harbor Ridge. Somewhere out there, Ethan was probably with Brooke. Maybe they were toasting to their new life. Maybe he was telling her how easy it was going to be, how he would pay me off and smooth it over. Let him think that. I thought, let him feel safe. Because when I made my move, I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to make a scene. I was going to take everything. The envelope from Vanguard Investigations was plain, brown, and heavy. It sat on the glass coffee table in my rental apartment like a loaded weapon. Silas, the private investigator, had handed it to me an hour ago with a nod and a bill for $2,000, saying only, "The timeline is solid." I waited until Leo was asleep in his bassinet before I opened it. The contents were not surprising. Yet seeing them printed in high-resolution color made the air leave my lungs. Her name was Brooke Calder. She was 28 years old. She was blonde, polished, and had the kind of curated professional presence that screams upward mobility, according to her LinkedIn profile, which Silas had printed out. She was a senior brand strategist. Her primary client for the last 18 months was Hawthorne Ridge Capital. I flipped through the photos. There was Ethan, walking out of a sushi restaurant in the financial district. His hand was on the small of her back. The date stamp was 4 months ago. I was 7 months pregnant then, likely sitting on the couch with swollen ankles, researching crib mattresses. There was another photo. The two of them entering the boutique hotel in Harbor Ridge. Ethan was laughing. It was a relaxed, easy laugh, the kind I hadn't heard from him in 2 years. Then came the receipts. Silas was thorough. He had matched the credit card charges I found to specific reservation logs. But he had found more. Dinner receipts for 2, Uber rides from his office to her apartment at 1 a.m, a receipt for a diamond tennis bracelet purchased 3 weeks before Leo was born. I looked at my own wrist. It was bare. I stacked the photos neatly. I did not tear them up. I did not scream. The time for screaming had passed. I felt a cold, clinical detachment settling over me. This was data. This was leverage. I packed the baby into his car seat and drove to Rena Delgado's office. When I spread the photos out on Rena's mahogany desk, I expected her to be outraged. I expected a gasp, a shake of the head, a moment of female solidarity. Instead, Rena looked at the photo of Ethan and Brooke entering the hotel, then pushed it aside with a manicured finger. "This is good," she said, "but not for the reason you think." I frowned. It proves he is a liar. It proves he checked out of the marriage while I was carrying his child. Rena took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. "Leah, listen to me. In family court, adultery is common. It is painful. It is morally bankrupt. But judges are desensitized to it. If we walk into court waving these photos and screaming about betrayal, you look like the scorned woman. He looks like a guy who made a mistake and wants to move on." She tapped the stack of financial documents Silas had included. "But this? This is different." She pointed to a series of invoices from Brooks' consulting firm. Calder's Strategy Group. He was paying her through the firm. Rena said, "Look at the dates. These consulting fees spike every time they took a trip." He was expensing his affair. And if he was using marital assets or firm assets to fund a personal relationship, that is dissipation of assets. Judges do not care about heartbreak. "Leah," Rena said, her voice sharp, "judges care about math. They trust math, and Ethan's math does not add up." She pulled out the postnup clause I had sent her. "We are not going to file for divorce based on adultery," she continued. "We are going to file based on financial malfeasance and the specific breach of the abandonment clause. We are going to make this about his wallet, not his zipper." I nodded slowly. It made sense. It took the emotion out of it. It made me a CEO managing a crisis, not a wife mourning a husband. "But we need more," Rena said. "I want you to dig deeper into the assets. Specifically, the trust distributions from your father. Ethan has been managing those for you, correct?" "Yes," I said. "He said it was easier to keep it all under the Hawthorne umbrella." Rena's eyes narrowed. "Check the collateral," she said. "Just check it." That night, I opened the digital vault where we kept the trust documents. My father had left me a modest but significant trust, generating distributions that we used for vacations and savings. I had always signed whatever Ethan put in front of me. Just a renewal. "Leah, just updating the beneficiary forms. I found a document dated 6 months ago. It was a loan agreement, a private loan for $300,000, taken out by Simmons Holdings, LLC. I didn't recognize the LLC name. I scrolled to the collateral section. Secured by the irrevocable assets of the Leah Vance Trust. My stomach dropped. I scrolled to the signature page. There was my signature, Leah Vance Simmons, but I had not signed this. I looked closer at the digital signature. It looked like mine. But then I remembered the date. November 12th. On November 12th, I had been hospitalized for preeclampsia monitoring. I had been hooked up to magnesium sulfate, barely conscious. I hadn't signed anything. He had forged it? No. Ethan was too smart for outright forgery. I remembered him coming to the hospital that day. He had brought a stack of papers, insurance forms, he had said. Just need your scribble so we can process the hospital admission. I had signed blindly, trusting him to protect me. He had slipped a loan authorization into a stack of medical forms while I was lying in a hospital bed, terrified for my unborn child. Why? Why did he need $300,000 in cash 6 months ago? I pulled up the corporate registry for Simmons Holdings, LLC. It had been formed 2 days before the loan was executed. The registered address was a P.O. box in Delaware. I cross-referenced the dates with the text messages and the receipts. The loan was taken out 1 week before a major compliance audit was scheduled at Hawthorne Ridge Capital. I remembered Ethan being stressed about the audit. He had said it was routine. But you don't take out a high-interest private loan secured by your wife's inheritance for a routine audit. You do it to plug a hole. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The divorce, the rush, the mercy of doing it now. It wasn't just about Brooke. He was trying to separate our finances before the next audit cycle. He needed to get me off the books. He needed to settle the divorce, get me to sign a waiver of further discovery, and bury Simmons Holdings LLC in the division of assets before I ever looked at it. If we stayed married, his debts were my debts. If his firm found out he was borrowing against client-adjacent family trusts to cover, what? Losses? Embezzlement? He would be ruined. Suddenly, the timing wasn't cruel. It was strategic. He had timed the divorce for the postpartum window because he banked on me being too tired to read the fine print. He thought I would be so consumed by diapers and grief that I would take the cash settlement and disappear. I sat back, my hands trembling. He didn't just break my heart. He stole from me. He stole from my father. And he used our son's birth as a smokescreen to cover his tracks. I closed the laptop. I walked into the bedroom where Leo was sleeping. I looked at his peaceful face. "Your father is not just a bad husband," I whispered. "He is a criminal." 2 days later, Ethan changed tactics. The aggression of the first week vanished. The lawyer's letters demanding custody slowed down. Instead, Ethan showed up at the rental apartment on a rainy Thursday evening. He was not wearing a suit. He was wearing a soft cashmere sweater and jeans. He was holding a bouquet of pink peonies, my favorite. He looked tired. His eyes were red-rimmed. He looked like the man I had married. "Leah," he said when I opened the door. "Can I come in? Just for a minute?" I hesitated. My brain screamed, "No, close the door. Call Rena." But my heart, that traitorous, bruised muscle, remembered the way he used to look at me. It remembered 10 years of history. I stepped back. He walked in. He smelled of rain and that sandalwood cologne that used to make my pulse race. He placed the flowers on the counter. "I wanted to see him," Ethan said, nodding toward the bassinet where Leo was kicking his legs. I didn't say anything. I watched him walk over to the baby. Ethan reached down and let Leo wrap his tiny hand around his finger. Ethan's face softened. A look of genuine wonder crossed his features. "He is getting so big," Ethan said quietly. "He is 2 weeks old," I said. Ethan turned to me. "Leah, I messed up." He didn't move toward me, but his voice dropped to that intimate register he used to use when we were in bed, discussing our future. "I was scared," he said. "The pressure at work, the baby coming." I panicked. I felt like I was drowning. He took a step closer. "I know I hurt you. I know the way I did this was terrible, but I look at you, and I look at him, and I wonder if we are making a mistake, rushing into lawyers and courts." He looked at me with those blue eyes, pleading. "Maybe we could slow down," he suggested. "Pause the filings. We could try mediation. Just the two of us, without the sharks." I felt a pull so strong it almost knocked me over. It was the pull of the familiar, the desperate wish that the last 2 weeks had been a hallucination. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to collapse into his arms and let him fix it. I wanted my husband back. I wanted my son to have a father who lived in the house, not a visitor who brought flowers. For a second, I wavered. I thought, maybe he's just having a breakdown. Maybe we can fix this. Then I looked at the peonies. They were wrapped in brown paper from a florist in the city, the same florist whose receipt I had seen in the PI's file. He had bought flowers for Brooke from the same place 3 days ago. And then I looked at his eyes again. He wasn't looking at me with love. He was scanning my face, looking for weakness. He was checking to see if the soft approach was working. He didn't want reconciliation. He wanted me to fire Rena. He wanted me to stop the discovery process. He wanted me to pause the filings so he could hide the loan. He was using his son as a prop. He was using our history as a weapon. The desire I felt curdled instantly into nausea. I hated myself for wanting him. I hated that my body still reacted to his scent, but that hate clarified things. It burned away the fog. I took a deep breath. I am not pausing anything. Ethan, I said. His face changed. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by a flash of irritation. Leah, be reasonable. Do you really want to burn through our savings on legal fees? I want the truth, I said, and the truth costs money. He stepped away from the bassinet. He looked at the baby, then back at me. You are making this harder than it needs to be, he said coldly. You made it hard when you served me divorce papers in a recovery room. I said, now please leave. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out. He didn't say goodbye to his son. I locked the door behind him. Then I slid down the wood paneling until I hit the floor, and I wept, not because I missed him, but because I had to kill the part of me that still loved him in order to survive. The next morning, I had a follow-up appointment for Leo. I was a wreck. My eyes were swollen. I hadn't slept. I felt brittle, as if a strong wind would shatter me into 1,000 pieces. Dr. Hart, Noah, walked into the exam room. He took one look at me and stopped. He didn't do the doctor thing. He didn't look at the chart. He didn't ask about the baby's bowel movements. He sat down on the rolling stool and looked me in the eye. You look like you are holding up the sky, he said. I tried to smile, but my lip trembled. I am fine, I said. Just a rough night. Noah shook his head slightly. That is not just a rough night. Leah, that is grief. He stood up. My nurse can weigh Leo. Come with me for a second. He led me out into the hallway, to a quiet alcove near the window. He didn't touch me. He just stood near me, creating a shield between me and the busy clinic. I almost let him back in. I confessed. The words tumbled out. He came over. He was nice. And for a minute, I wanted to believe him. I looked at Noah, feeling the shame burn my cheeks. I am so stupid. He is destroying my life, and I still wanted him to hold me. Noah looked at me with a steady, unblinking gaze. You are not stupid, he said. You are human. You loved him. Love does not have an off switch, even when the other person is a monster. I wiped my eyes. I am terrified. I whispered, of what? Of becoming the bitter ex-wife, I said. The woman who is angry and vengeful and obsessed with her ex. I don't want to be that person. I want to be happy, but I am so angry. Noah leaned against the windowsill. The sunlight caught the gray in his dark curls. Leah, listen to me, he said. His voice was low and intense. There is a difference between bitterness and justice. Bitterness is drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Justice is holding someone accountable for the damage they caused. He looked at my hands, which were twisting a tissue into shreds. You can be hurt and still be honest, he said. That is not bitterness. That is strength. If he hurt you, if he deceived you, standing up to him is not revenge. It is self-respect. I looked up at him. His eyes were kind, but there was a steeliness in them too. He wasn't treating me like a broken bird. He was treating me like a fighter who had taken a hit. You are right, I said. He nodded. Take the time you need, he said. We will take care of Leo. You take care of Leah. He walked back into the exam room. I stood in the hallway for a moment, breathing in the antiseptic air. Justice is holding someone accountable. I wasn't bitter. I was right. I drove straight from the pediatrician's office to Rena's firm. I walked into her office without an appointment. Do it, I said. Rena looked up from her computer. Do what? File the subpoenas. I said, all of them. The business accounts, the personal accounts, the credit cards. and serve a subpoena to Calder Strategy Group. Rena smiled, a slow, predatory smile. And the loan? She asked. I want a forensic trace on the $300,000. I said, I want to know exactly where that money went, and I want to subpoena the compliance records from Hawthorne Ridge regarding the audit dates. Rena picked up her phone. This is going to get ugly. Leah, he will retaliate. He will say you are harassing him. Let him. I said, I am done protecting him. We spent the next 2 hours drafting the motions. We didn't just ask for documents. We demanded the architecture of his life. We asked for travel logs, calendar entries, internal expense reports. We crafted the argument around the postnup. We weren't just fishing, we were enforcing a contract he had signed. Rena sent the filings electronically before I even left the office. By the time I got back to the rental, my phone was blowing up. 7 missed calls from Ethan, 3 texts. What the hell are you doing? You are going to ruin my reputation. Call me now. I didn't call him. I put the phone on silent. I sat down at the kitchen table with a blank notebook. I wrote one word at the top of the page. Announcement. It wasn't going to be a Facebook post. I wasn't going to write a long, emotional essay on Medium about surviving narcissism. That was too small. That was too easy for him to dismiss as hysteria. My announcement needed to be undeniable. It needed to be public, professional, and final. I started to map it out. Step 1. The legal discovery. Get the proof of the financial fraud. Step 2. The trust. Use my status as a beneficiary to gain access to the firm's shareholder information. Step 3. The leverage. Connect the private loan and the consulting fees to firm activity. Step 4. The room. I knew exactly where it had to happen, every quarter. Hawthorne Ridge Capital held a partners' meeting. It was where they voted on new buy-ins, where they discussed the firm's health. It was the inner sanctum. Ethan had told me about them. He had bragged about how exclusive they were, but my father's trust held a stake, a silent stake, but a voting one. And as the trustee of my own assets, now that I was awake, I had a right to be there. I closed my eyes and pictured it, walking into that glass-walled conference room, Ethan sitting at the head of the table, Brooke, perhaps, sitting nearby taking notes on strategy. I wouldn't scream. I would simply place the documents on the table, the loan with the forged signature, the invoices for the affair, the proof that he had exposed the firm to regulatory risk to cover his personal mess. I would speak only once. I opened my eyes. The plan was ambitious. It was dangerous. If I missed, if the evidence wasn't solid, he would crush me. But looking at the unstable accusation in his court filings, and the mercy in his voice when he tried to manipulate me, I knew I had no choice. He had built a house of cards. I was just going to open the window. Harbor Ridge is a city built on appearances. It is a place where lawns are manicured to the millimeter, cars are washed daily, and marriages are considered successful as long as the Christmas card looks happy. I knew the rules. I had played the game for 7 years, but I had never realized how quickly the town turns on a woman who stops playing. Ethan did not scream at me for filing the subpoenas. He did not storm over to the rental apartment and demand I retract them. That would have been messy, and Ethan hated mess. Instead, he went to work on my reputation. It started with a text from a woman I had known since college, a mutual friend named Jessica. "Hey, Leah," the message read, "Ethan mentioned you are having a really hard time adjusting. I just wanted to say, there is no shame in getting help. Postpartum psychosis is real. Let me know if you need a doctor recommendation." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the glass. Postpartum psychosis. He was not just saying I was sad. He was telling people I was crazy. He was planting the seed that my actions, the divorce, the subpoenas, the anger, were not the result of his betrayal, but the symptoms of my own mental break. 2 hours later, my mother called, her voice trembling. "Leah, Ethan called your father," she said. "He is worried. He said you are acting erratic. He said you are refusing to let him see the baby and making wild accusations about his business." I felt a cold rage settle in my stomach. It was heavier than the grief, but it was useful. It grounded me. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I am holding Leo right now. He is fed, he is clean, and he is happy. I am not erratic. I am divorcing a man who has a mistress and a secret bank account." But he sounded so concerned. She said, "He was crying." "Leah, of course he was." I said, "That is the performance. I did not scream. I did not post a defense on social media. I did not call Jessica and tell her to go to hell. I knew that any display of emotion would only confirm his narrative. See, she is hysterical. She is unstable." I went gray rock. I communicated with Ethan only through a parenting app called Our Family Wizard, which Rena had recommended. Every message was timestamped. Every message was admissible in court. "Ethan," I wrote at 10 in the morning. "Leo has a pediatrician appointment on Thursday at 2. You are welcome to join. Please let me know if you will be there." "Ethan," I wrote the next day, "please confirm the drop-off time for Saturday. I have prepared the bag with his formula and a change of clothes." I was boring. I was pleasant. I was relentlessly organized. I gave him absolutely nothing to work with. When he tried to bait me with texts about my mental state, I replied with, "Received. Let's keep this channel focused on Leo." I was building a wall of sanity, brick by brick, that he could not climb over. While Ethan was busy whispering to our friends, I was busy with the math. I sat in the conference room at Sable Finch 3 weeks after the initial filing. The table was covered in paper. Rena was there, along with a man I hadn't met before. "This is David Chen," Rena said. "He is a forensic accountant. He follows the money when people try to hide it." David was a small man with thick glasses and a smile that suggested he enjoyed puzzles more than people. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. He tapped a spreadsheet projected onto the wall screen. "We found the thread," David said. He pointed to a line item. "You already knew about the payments to Calder Strategy Group," he said, "the consulting fees. But we dug into the entity itself. It is a Delaware LLC, registered to a registered agent, standard privacy screen, but they got sloppy." David clicked a button, and the screen changed to show a bank transfer web. "We subpoenaed the bank records for Calder Strategy Group based on the invoice numbers," he explained. "We found that 40% of the money flowing into that account did not stay there. It was transferred within 24 hours to another entity called Apex Consulting." "And who owns Apex Consulting?" I asked. David smiled. "Ethan Simmons," he said. "We traced the IP address used to access the Apex bank account. It resolves to your former home address on Elm Street and his office at Hawthorne Ridge." I felt a chill. "So he wasn't just paying her," I said. "He was washing money through her." "It gets worse," Rena said. She leaned forward, her face serious. "David, show her the dates." David pulled up a timeline. On the top half were the dates of the transfers from Hawthorne Ridge to Calder Strategy Group. On the bottom half were the dates of major deal closings at Hawthorne Ridge Capital. "Look at this," David said. "March 12th. Hawthorne closes the acquisition of the Redstone Tech deal, a massive transaction. The fee to the firm would have been in the millions." He pointed to the line below it. "March 14th. A payment of $50,000 is authorized from a discretionary deal account to Calder Strategy Group for market research." March 15th. $20,000 moves from Calder to Apex. He did it again. May 2nd. The Blue Water Logistics buyout. May 4th. $75,000 to Calder, $30,000 to Apex. Rena took off her glasses. "Leah," she said, "this is not just hiding money from a wife. This is embezzlement. He is siphoning money from client deal accounts, disguising it as vendor payments to his mistress, and then kicking a portion back to himself." I stared at the screen. The numbers blurred. "Why?" I asked. "He makes plenty of money. Why steal?" "Because he is leveraged," David said. "We found the gambling debts." The air left the room. "Gambling?" I whispered. "Online sports betting," David said. "High stakes, and some bad crypto positions that went to zero last year. He is in a hole. Leah, a $3 million hole. That is why he needed the loan against your trust. That is why he needs the divorce to be cheap. He is robbing Peter to pay Paul. and he is using his firm's accounts to do it. I sat back in the leather chair. I thought I knew the man I married. I thought he was a selfish, cheating climber. I didn't know he was a desperate criminal. This is leverage, Rena said softly. This is the nuclear option. If the partners at Hawthorne Ridge find out he is embezzling deal funds, he is not just fired, he is prosecuted. I looked at the data. I looked at the timeline of Leo's birth, overlapped with the theft. He was stealing money while I was in labor. I said, Rena nodded. Likely. So what do we do? I asked. Do we turn him in? Not yet, Rena said. If he goes to jail now, the assets freeze. You get nothing. We need to secure your settlement first. We use this to force him to sign. Wait, I said. I remembered something. I opened my bag and pulled out the file on my father's trust. I had been reading it at night, trying to understand the loan he had forged. There is something else, I said. I slid the trust deed across the table to Rena. I was reading the asset schedule. I said, my father didn't just put cash in the trust. He made an investment 10 years ago, before I met Ethan. Rena put her glasses back on. She read the page I pointed to. Her eyebrows shot up. Series B preferred units. Hawthorne Ridge Capital. She looked at me. Your father was an early investor? He knew the founding partner. I said, he put in $200,000 as seed money. He told me it was a flyer. I never paid attention to it. Ethan handled the distributions. Rena started typing furiously on her laptop. Leah, she said, do you know what Series B units are in a private equity firm? No, I said. They are equity, she said, but usually, they come with information rights. She pulled up the Hawthorne Ridge corporate bylaws, which she had accessed through the discovery process. Here it is, she said. Holders of Series B preferred units generally hold non-voting status, except in cases where the ownership interest exceeds 1%, or... She stopped. She smiled, a true, shark-like smile. Or, in the event of a change of control or significant liquidity event. That doesn't help us, I said. There is no change of control. Read the next line, Rena said. Or if the holder is a beneficiary of a trust that has held the position for more than 10 years, said holder is entitled to attend the annual general meeting and any emergency partners meetings regarding capital calls. She looked up at me. You are not just a wife, Leah. You are a stakeholder. You have a right to walk through the front door. I looked at the document. My father, dead for 5 years, had left me a key. He had left me a way in. Ethan thinks I am outside the castle walls, begging to be let in. I said, Rena nodded. He forgot you own a brick in the foundation. The Hawthorne Ridge Charity Gala was the social event of the season. It was held at the Harbor View Hotel, in the grand ballroom with the crystal chandeliers and the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. Tickets were $5,000 a plate. Ethan would be there. Brooke would be there, likely disguised as staff or a consultant, but present, and I would be there. I had used the trust funds to buy a table. I didn't ask Ethan for permission. I didn't ask him for a ticket. I simply had the trust administrator write the check. I stood in front of the full-length mirror in the rental apartment. Aunt Marianne sat on the bed behind me, holding Leo. You look like a queen, Marianne said. I looked at my reflection. I was wearing a midnight blue gown, silk and structured, with a neckline that framed my collarbones and a skirt that flowed over my healing body. It was not a dress for a girl. It was a dress for a woman who had survived a war. I felt terrified. My stomach was doing flip-flops. I felt the phantom weight of the baby I had carried, the softness of my midsection that the Spanx were fighting to contain. I felt like an imposter. I can't do this, I whispered. Everyone there knows. They have all heard the rumors. They think I am the crazy ex-wife crashing the party. Marianne stood up. She handed Leo to Callie, who had just walked in to babysit. Marianne walked over to me and gripped my shoulders. Her hands were strong. Leah Vance Simmons, she said, you are not crashing. You paid for the table. You are a donor. You are a mother. And you are the only person in that room who knows the truth. She turned me to face the mirror. Lift your chin. she ordered. I lifted my chin. Ethan expects you to be hiding in a dark room crying over a photo album, she said. He expects you to be ashamed. Shame is a weapon. Leah, if you refuse to pick it up, he can't use it against you. I took a deep breath. I looked at my eyes in the mirror. They were dark and frightened, but they were open. Okay, I said. Let's go. The ballroom was a sea of black tuxedos and glittering gowns. The air smelled of expensive perfume, champagne, and money. A jazz band played softly in the corner. I walked in with Marianne on my arm. The moment we stepped onto the carpet, I felt the heads turn. It was subtle, a ripple of movement, a whisper that traveled faster than sound. Is that her? Is that Leah? I thought she was in a facility. I kept my head high. I fixed a pleasant, vague smile on my face. I moved through the crowd like a ship cutting through ice. Hello? Susan? I said to a woman who had ignored my text last week. Lovely dress. Hi, Mark. I said to one of Ethan's partners. Good to see you. I forced them to acknowledge me. I forced them to look me in the eye. And in every pair of eyes, I saw the same thing. Confusion. I did not look crazy. I did not look broken. I looked undeniable. And then I saw him. Ethan was standing near the bar, holding a tumbler of scotch. He was laughing at something a client was saying. He looked handsome, confident, the master of his universe. Brooke was standing 3 feet away, talking to another associate. She was wearing a silver dress that clung to her like water. She looked young, painfully young. Then Ethan turned his head. He saw me. The laugh died in his throat. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. The color drained from his face, leaving it the color of old parchment. He lowered his glass slowly, as if he had forgotten he was holding it. It wasn't love. It wasn't regret. It was fear. Pure, unadulterated panic. He looked at me. Then he looked at the partners around him. Then back at me. He was calculating the blast radius. He was wondering if I was about to jump on a table and scream. He was wondering if I had the microphone. I held his gaze across the room. I didn't wave. I didn't scowl. I just looked at him with a calm, terrifying neutrality. I am here, my eyes said, and I know. He took a step toward me, then stopped. He couldn't make a scene. He was trapped by his own rules of decorum. I turned away. I dismissed him. I walked toward the balcony doors, needing air. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The adrenaline was making my hands shake. I stepped out onto the stone terrace. The night air was cool and salty. The city lights of Harbor Ridge twinkled below, indifferent to my drama. I leaned against the stone railing, closing my eyes, taking deep, ragged breaths. Breathe, I told myself. You did it. You stood there. Rough night? A voice said. I jumped, turning around. Noah Hart was standing in the shadows of a pillar. He was wearing a tuxedo, which should have looked strange on a man I only knew in dinosaur scrubs, but instead, it made him look devastatingly elegant. Dr. Hart, I said. Noah, he corrected, stepping into the light. He wasn't holding a drink. He had his hands in his pockets. He looked at me with that same steady, grounding presence he had in the clinic. I didn't know you were coming. I said, I am a sponsor, he said. For the Pediatric Wing Initiative, I hate these things. Usually, too much talking, not enough doing. He moved to stand next to me at the railing. He didn't crowd me. He left a respectful distance, but I could feel the warmth of him. You look incredible. Leah, he said. I looked down at my hands. I feel like I'm wearing a costume. I admitted, everyone in there is staring at me. They are waiting for me to crack. Let them stare, Noah said. They are staring because you are the strongest person in the room. I laughed. A short, bitter sound. I am not strong. Noah, I am acting. I am terrified. My husband is in there with his mistress, and I am standing here trying not to vomit. Noah turned to face me. He took a hand out of his pocket and, very slowly, reached out and covered my hand on the railing. His skin was warm, rough, real. Acting brave is the same thing as being brave, he said. You showed up. That is the only part that matters. I looked up at him. The city lights reflected in his dark eyes. Why are you so nice to me? I asked. My voice was a whisper. He looked at me for a long moment. The air between us seemed to charge, changing from friendly to something denser, heavier. Because I see you, he said. I don't see the gossip. I don't see the poor Leah story. I see a woman who is fighting for her life. And I like that woman. My breath hitched. He wasn't flirting in the cheap, barroom way. He was offering me something I hadn't felt in years. He was offering me to be seen. He squeezed my hand, then let go. He didn't push. He didn't try to kiss me. He stepped back, giving me the space I didn't know I needed. You should go back in there, he said. Finish the lap. Don't let him see you hiding out here. I nodded. He was right. Will you come with me? I asked. I will be right behind you, he said. I walked back into the ballroom. I felt different. The fear was still there, but the panic was gone. I felt tethered. I did one more lap. I said goodbye to Marianne. I walked past Ethan one more time, ignoring his whispered, Leah, wait, as I passed. I left the gala at 10 o'clock. I got into the taxi and checked my phone. There was a message from Rena. It's happening. The text read, attached was a forwarded email notification from the Hawthorne Ridge corporate server, which she had accessed through my shareholder rights. Urgent. Emergency partners meeting. Date, October 14th. Agenda, capital call and compliance review. I stared at the screen. A capital call. That meant the firm was in trouble. That meant the hole Ethan had dug was getting too big to hide. Rena sent a second text. You qualify to attend. Section 4.2 of the bylaws. Do you want to go? I looked out the window at the passing streetlights. I thought about Ethan's face when he saw me tonight. I thought about the mercy speech. I thought about the forged signature on the loan. I didn't smile. Smiling felt too light for what I was feeling. I exhaled. A slow, sharp sound that rattled in the quiet cab. Yes, I typed back. I will be there. This was the doorway he had tried to lock. This was the room where he thought he was safe. He was wrong. The mediation room at Mariner County Family Court smelled of stale coffee and desperation. It was a windowless box designed to suck the emotion out of the room, leaving only numbers and compromise. I sat on one side of the long, fake wood table. Rena was next to me, her posture rigid, her legal pad ready. On the other side sat Ethan and his attorney, a man named George Sterling, who wore suspenders and a weary expression. Ethan looked terrible. The polished veneer of the concerned father was cracking. His suit was still expensive, but his tie was slightly askew, and there were dark circles under his eyes that concealer could not hide. He tapped his pen against the table in a rapid staccato rhythm that betrayed his nerves. We are here to settle, George Sterling said, opening a thick binder. Mr. Simmons wants to put this behind everyone. He wants to be generous. He slid a paper across the table. Rena picked it up. She read it without expression, then handed it to me. I looked at the number. $1.5 million, plus full title to the house on Elm Street, plus a fully funded education trust for Leo. It was a lot of money. It was enough to start over anywhere. It was enough to never work again for a decade. There is a condition, George said. I looked up. Of course there is. Mr. Simmons requires a full confidentiality agreement, George said, and a waiver of further discovery. We close the books today. No more subpoenas. No more forensic audits. We seal the file, and everyone moves on. I looked at Ethan. He was watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. He wasn't looking at me with generosity. He was looking at me like a bomb disposal technician watching a timer count down. He was terrified. He knew what David Chen, our forensic accountant, was finding. He knew we were inches away from the truth about Apex Consulting and the client funds. He was trying to buy my silence before I realized what I was selling. It is a very fair offer, Ethan said. His voice was tight. Take it, Leah. For Leo. You won't have to worry about money. I looked at the paper again. Then I looked at the binder Rena had brought. the one containing the post-nup clause and the preliminary forensic report. I placed the settlement offer back on the table. No, I said. Ethan flinched. His hand stopped tapping. Excuse me? George asked, blinking. I said no. I repeated, I am not signing a waiver of discovery, and I'm not signing a confidentiality agreement. Leah, be reasonable. Ethan snapped. The mask slipped for a second, revealing the snarl beneath. This is more than you would get in court. I don't care about the amount. Ethan, I said, I care about the source. I leaned forward. I know about Apex Consulting. I said. The room went dead silent. The air conditioning hummed, sounding like a jet engine in the quiet. Ethan went pale. Not just pale, gray. He looked at his lawyer, then back at me. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, but his voice cracked on the last word. I think you do. I said, I think you're using marital assets to fund a shell company. I think you are washing money, and I am not going to be an accessory to it by taking a payout that comes from stolen funds. Rena spoke up, her voice calm and deadly. We are invoking the abandonment clause of the post-nuptial agreement, she said, and we are demanding full transparency. We want the ledgers for Apex. We want the client list from Hawthorne Ridge that overlaps with your consulting payments. Ethan stood up abruptly. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. This is harassment, he shouted. He pointed a shaking finger at me. She is trying to ruin my career because she is bitter. Sit down. Ethan, George hissed, pulling on his sleeve. I didn't flinch. I watched him unravel. I am not bitter, I said quietly. I am thorough. We are done here, Ethan said. He grabbed his briefcase. No deal. I will see you in court. He stormed out. George looked at us, sighed, and started packing his binder. You know he is desperate, George said, almost sympathetically. I know, I said. That is why I am winning. 3 days later. Brooke Calder walked into the conference room at Sable Finch for her deposition. We had subpoenaed her not as a mistress, but as a vendor. Rena had been brilliant. She had framed the subpoena entirely around the financial irregularities of Calder Strategy Group. Brooke tried to look bored. She was wearing a beige power suit and oversized sunglasses, which she took off slowly when she sat down. She had a lawyer with her, a young associate who looked like he was out of his depth. I sat in the corner. I wasn't required to be there, but I wanted to be. I wanted her to see me. When she saw me, her lip curled slightly, a micro-expression of disdain. She didn't see a threat. She saw the discarded wife. She saw the past. Rena started the camera. State your name for the record. Brooke Calder. Rena began with the easy stuff. Employment history, her contract with Hawthorne Ridge. Brooke answered with practiced ease, checking her nails, acting like this was a waste of her valuable time. Then Rena changed gears. Ms. Calder, can you explain the nature of the services provided on the invoice dated March 14th? Rena asked, sliding a paper across the table. The amount is $50,000. Brooke glanced at it. Market research. What kind of market research costs $50,000 for a 3-day period? Rena asked. Comprehensive analysis, Brooke said vaguely. It is standard industry pricing. I see, Rena said. And can you explain why? On March 15th, $20,000 of that payment was transferred to Apex Consulting. Brooke froze. Her hand, which had been resting on the table, twitched. I hire subcontractors, she said. Who is the principal of Apex Consulting? Rena asked. Brooke blinked rapidly. I don't recall. You don't recall the name of the subcontractor you paid $20,000 to? Rena asked. I manage a lot of vendors, Brooke said. Her voice was higher now, sharper. Is it true that Apex Consulting is registered to an address associated with Ethan Simmons? Objection. Brooke's lawyer said. Relevance. It goes to the dissipation of marital assets. Rena said calmly. Answer the question. Brooke looked at her lawyer. He nodded. I believe. Yes. Ethan did some advisory work for me. Advisory work, Rena repeated. So, Hawthorne Ridge pays you, and you pay Ethan back. Is that correct? Brooke's face flushed. It was a complicated arrangement. We were building a brand. What brand? Rena asked. Ethan's brand, Brooke snapped. She was losing her cool. The arrogance was melting, revealing the panic underneath. He wanted to leave the firm eventually. She said, he wanted to start his own fund. We were building his war chest. He needed capital to launch. We were creating a strategy for his exit. And where did I fit into that strategy? I asked. Rena didn't stop me. Brooke looked at me. For the first time, she looked directly at me. You didn't fit, she said. Her voice was cold, cruel. That was the point. Ethan said you were legacy. He said he needed a partner who understood the game, someone who could look good on a magazine cover. He said you were fine for the beginning, but you couldn't handle where he was going. The words hit me like a slap. Legacy, starter wife. I wasn't just a woman he fell out of love with. I was an accessory he had outgrown. And the baby? I asked. Did Leo fit? Brooke looked away. She looked uncomfortable. He said the timing was bad. She mumbled. But he figured a clean break was better. He wanted to start fresh. With me. I stared at her. She wasn't a victim. She wasn't just a girl who fell in love with a married man. She was a co-conspirator. She had sat in rooms with him, planning his rebrand, planning how to discard me and my son like last season's fashion, while I was pregnant. So you admit, Rena said, cutting through the tension, that you and Mr. Simmons knowingly diverted funds from his current firm to finance this new life? Brooke stopped. She realized what she had said. I didn't say that. You just said you were building a war chest. Rena said. Thank you, Ms. Calder. That will be all. Brooke stood up. She looked shaky. She grabbed her bag and walked out without looking at me again. I sat in the chair, feeling a cold fire in my chest. He rebranded his life, I said softly. Rena clicked off the camera. And we just got the footage that is going to cancel his show. She said. That evening, I was unloading groceries from the car outside the rental. It was raining, a slow, miserable drizzle that soaked through my jacket. Leah. I turned. Ethan was standing on the sidewalk. He was wearing a hooded raincoat. He looked like a ghost. I put the grocery bag down on the wet pavement. What do you want? Ethan? I asked. My voice was weary. I have a restraining order pending. You shouldn't be here. I just want to talk, he said. No lawyers, no cameras, just us. He took a step closer. The street lamp cast hollow shadows on his face. Do you remember that trip we took to Big Sur? He asked. 4 years ago? We sat on that cliff and watched the whales. You told me that no matter what happened, we were a team. I remembered. I remembered the smell of the sagebrush and the sound of the waves. I remembered loving him so much it hurt. I remember. I said, I meant it. Leah, he said, I still mean it. We are a team. We have a son. He reached out a hand. I know I lost my way. I know I hurt you. But this, what you are doing, it is going to destroy everything. Not just me, us. If I go down, the assets go away. The trust for Leo goes away. He softened his voice. I know you still love me, he said. I can see it in your eyes. You are hurt. I get that. But don't burn the house down because you are mad at the landlord. I looked at his hand. It was the hand that had placed the divorce papers on my hospital tray. It was the hand that had held Brooke's back in the sushi restaurant. I felt the ache. God, I felt it. The history, the intimacy, the biological imperative to forgive the father of my child. It would be so easy to give in, to sign the paper, to take the money, to pretend. But then I thought about Brooke's voice in the deposition. Legacy, outgrown. He wasn't sorry he betrayed me. He was sorry I was fighting back. He was using our memories as currency to buy his way out of consequences. I looked up at his face. I do love you, I said. His eyes lit up. Hope. I love the man I thought you were. I continued. But that man is dead. You killed him. I picked up the grocery bag. You are not a team player. Ethan, I said, you are a parasite, and I'm not going to let you feed on me anymore. I walked toward the building. Leah! He shouted. "You are making a mistake. You are going to regret this." I didn't turn around. I punched the code into the keypad and walked inside. When I got to the apartment, I locked the door and slid the deadbolt. Then I leaned my forehead against the wood and shook. It wasn't fear, it was the sheer, exhausting effort of killing the hope that still lived in my chest. 10 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. I jumped. "Go away!" "Ethan!" I yelled. "I am calling the police." "It's Noah," a voice said. I froze. I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door. Noah stood there. He was wearing jeans and a rain jacket. He was holding a paper bag that smelled like Thai food. "I was in the neighborhood," he said. "I thought you might have forgotten to eat." I looked at him. I looked at the kind lines around his eyes. I burst into tears. Noah didn't ask questions. He stepped inside, closed the door, and put the food on the table. Then he turned and opened his arms. I walked into them. He felt solid. He smelled like rain and soap. He held me while I sobbed into his chest. I cried for the marriage. I cried for the deception. I cried for the girl I used to be, the one who believed in forever. When I finally stopped, I pulled back. My face was a mess. "I am sorry." I sniffled. "I am a disaster." "You are not a disaster," Noah said, handing me a napkin. "You are grieving." He led me to the couch. We sat down. He opened the cartons of pad thai. "Eat," he commanded gently. We ate in silence for a while. It was a comfortable silence. "I saw him today," I said finally. "Ethan. He came here. He tried to use our memories to get me to stop the investigation." Noah paused, his fork halfway to his mouth. "Did it work?" he asked. "No," I said, "but it hurt. It hurt so much." I put my fork down. "I don't know who I am after this." "Noah," I whispered. "I was a wife. I was a partner. I was part of a we. Now I am just paperwork. I am a plaintiff. I am a mother. Yes. But who am I?" Noah set his food down. He turned his body toward me. "Leah, look at me." I looked at him. "You are not paperwork," he said. His voice was low and intense. "You are the woman who walked into a law firm 3 days postpartum. You are the woman who stood on that balcony and faced down the man who broke her. You are the woman who got up anyway." He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered on my cheek. "Ethan didn't make you," he said, "and he can't unmake you." My heart started to beat faster. Not from panic, but from something else. "Noah," I said. He didn't move his hand. "I shouldn't be here," he said softly. "I know that. I am your doctor. I am your friend." "I don't need a doctor right now," I said, "and I have plenty of friends." He looked at my lips. Then he looked into my eyes, asking a silent question. I nodded, a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. He leaned in slowly. He gave me every chance to pull away. When his lips touched mine, it wasn't an explosion. It wasn't the desperate, fiery crash I had with Ethan in the beginning. It was grounding. It was warm. It was safe. It tasted like rain and promise. I kissed him back. I put my hand on the back of his neck, feeling the damp curls of his hair. I felt my body waking up, not as a mother, not as a victim, but as a woman. He pulled back just an inch. "Are you okay?" he whispered. "Yes," I said. "I am okay." We didn't go further. We didn't need to. We sat on the couch, his arm around me, my head on his shoulder, watching the rain streak the window. It wasn't a replacement love. It wasn't a bandage. It was a reminder that I was still alive, that I still had a future, that I could still be touched with tenderness. The next morning, I walked into Rena's office with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. "I am ready," I said. Rena looked up. She saw the change in me. The frantic energy was gone, replaced by a cool, hard resolve. She opened the file. "The announcement package," she said. It lay on the desk. 4 stacks of documents. First, the proxy authorization. This verified my status as the trustee for the Series B units and authorized me to speak at the partners' meeting. Second, the forensic summary. David Chen's masterpiece. A 20-page document detailing the flow of funds from Hawthorne Ridge to Calder Strategy Group, to Apex Consulting, to Ethan's personal debts. It included the forged loan document. Third, the motion for emergency relief. This was for the family court. It requested an immediate freeze of all marital assets and a protective order for the trust. Fourth, the board letter, a formal request for the Hawthorne Ridge Capital Board of Directors to open an internal investigation into partner misconduct. I picked up the pen. My hand didn't shake. I wasn't signing these out of spite. I wasn't signing them to hurt Ethan. If he had just left me, if he had just been honest, I would have let him go. I would have mourned and moved on. But he had tried to rob my son. He had tried to gaslight me into insanity. He had endangered my father's legacy and my child's future to cover his own gambling debts. He had treated loyalty as disposable. Now he was going to learn that loyalty has a price. I signed my name, Leah Vance Simmons. The ink was black and permanent. Rena took the papers. She looked at me with respect. "The meeting is in 3 days," she said. "Are you sure you can do this? You are going to walk into a room full of wolves." I stood up and smoothed my jacket. "I have been living with a wolf for 7 years. Rena," I said, "I think I can handle the pack." I walked out of the office and into the bright autumn sunlight. I pulled out my phone and texted Noah. "It's done. The paperwork is signed." He replied instantly, "I am proud of you. I will be waiting when you get out." I smiled. Then I checked the date. October 11th, in 3 days, on October 14th. Ethan was going to walk into a meeting expecting a capital call. He was going to get a reckoning. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor of the Hawthorne Ridge Capitol Tower took exactly 45 seconds. I counted them. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. I watched the numbers climb on the digital display, feeling the pressure change in my ears. I was wearing a charcoal wool suit that Rena had helped me pick out. It was tailored, severe, and expensive. I was not wearing my wedding ring. My left hand felt light, unburdened. I was still bleeding. Technically, it had been 4 weeks since Leo was born. My body was still stitching itself back together. My breasts were taped down under my silk blouse to prevent leaking. I was tired in a way that felt geological, deep in the bedrock of my bones. But my mind was sharp. It was a cold, clear diamond. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. The reception area was glass and marble, designed to intimidate. The receptionist, a young woman with a headset, looked up. "Can I help you?" she asked, her eyes scanning my lack of a visitor badge. "I am here for the partners meeting." I said, "I am sorry," she said, her voice polite but firm. "That is a closed session. Only equity partners and invited counsel." I placed my hand on the marble desk. "I am a Series B stakeholder with voting rights under the irrevocable Leah Vance Trust," I said. "My counsel has already notified the corporate secretary." She blinked. She typed something into her computer. Her eyes widened. "Oh," she said, "Ms. Simmons, yes, they are just starting." She gestured toward the double mahogany doors at the end of the hall. "Go right in." I walked down the hallway. My heels clicked on the polished stone. Click, click, click. It sounded like a countdown. I reached the doors. I didn't knock. I pushed them open. The conference room was massive. One wall was entirely glass, overlooking the harbor where Ethan and I had once taken a ferry ride on our first anniversary. The table was a long slab of black walnut. 12 men and 1 woman sat around it. At the head of the table sat Marcus Thorne, the managing partner. He was a lion of a man, 60 years old, with silver hair and a reputation for ruthlessness. To his right sat Ethan. Ethan was mid-sentence. He was holding a laser pointer, gesturing at a projection of a quarterly yield chart. "And we anticipate the liquidity crunch to resolve by Q4, provided we maintain the current fee structure and—" He stopped. He saw me. The laser pointer skittered across the screen, a jagged red line that looked like a heartbeat monitor flatlining. Ethan went rigid. It wasn't a subtle stiffening. It was a full-body seize. His face drained of color so fast, it looked like the blood had been sucked out of the room. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The room went silent. 12 pairs of eyes turned to look at me. Ethan staring at me was a mixture of things. I saw disbelief. I saw anger. But mostly, underneath the starch of his collar and the gel in his hair, I saw terror. He looked like a man who had forgotten he was mortal. "Leah?" he whispered. The word hung in the air. Unauthorized and intimate. Marcus Thorne frowned. He looked at Ethan, then at me. "Ethan," Marcus said, his voice a low rumble. "Why is your wife in the boardroom?" Ethan stood up. His chair legs screeched against the floor. I do not know," Ethan stammered. "Leah, you cannot be here. This is a confidential meeting. You need to leave. Now." He started to walk toward me, his hands raising in a gesture that was half hurting, half pleading. I didn't move. I didn't retreat. I stepped fully into the room and let the heavy door close behind me. "I am not here as your wife." "Ethan," I said. My voice was calm. It didn't shake. I was surprised by how steady it sounded. I walked to the empty chair at the far end of the table, opposite Marcus. "I am here as the trustee of the Vance Trust," I said, "which holds a 2% equity stake in this firm." Ethan stopped walking. "That is ridiculous," he snapped. "That is a passive investment. You have no floor rights." I looked at the man seated next to Marcus. It was the firm's general counsel, a man named Arthur Pence. Rena had sent him the bylaws yesterday. "Mr. Pence," I said, "would you please clarify the standing of a Series B unit holder in the event of a capital call?" Arthur Pence adjusted his glasses. He looked at his tablet. He looked at Ethan with a cool, detached expression. "She is correct," Arthur said. "Under Section 4.2 of the operating agreement, any stakeholder with more than 1% equity has the right to attend emergency sessions regarding capital structure. Ms. Simmons is the trustee of record. She has the floor." Ethan looked like he had been slapped. "Arthur," Ethan said, his voice rising, "she is going through a mental health crisis. We are in the middle of a divorce. This is a domestic dispute spilling into the office. We cannot allow this." I sat down. I placed my leather portfolio on the table. "This is not a domestic dispute," I said. "This is a governance issue." Marcus Thorne leaned forward. He smelled blood. "Let her speak." "Ethan," Marcus said. Ethan looked at Marcus. He opened his mouth to argue, saw the look in the senior partner's eyes, and shut it. He sat down slowly. He looked sick. I opened my portfolio. I took out 4 bound copies of the report. Rena and David Chen, the forensic accountant, had prepared. I slid one down the table to Marcus, one to Arthur Pence, one to the head of the audit committee, and one to Ethan. Ethan stared at the cover. Forensic summary. Apex Consulting Associated Liabilities. I saw his throat work as he swallowed. "I am invoking the abandonment clause of my post-nuptial agreement." I began. I was speaking to the room, but I was looking at Marcus. As part of the discovery process for my divorce, my counsel subpoenaed the financial records of my husband, Ethan Simmons. I paused. "We were looking for hidden marital assets. We found them, but we also found something else." I pointed to the document. "On page 4, you will find a record of transfers from Hawthorne Ridge Capital's deal accounts to a vendor known as Calder Strategy Group." At the side of the room, seated in a chair against the wall, a woman shifted. It was Brooke. I hadn't looked at her yet. She was holding a notepad, dressed in black, trying to be invisible. Now, she went very still. "These payments," I continued, "coincide with the closing dates of the Redstone and Blue Water deals. They are labeled as market research." I turned the page. However, 40% of those funds were immediately transferred from Calder Strategy Group to a shell entity called Apex Consulting. I looked at Ethan. He was staring at the table, his hands gripping the edge so hard his knuckles were white. "Apex Consulting," I said, "is registered to a post office box in Delaware, but the IP address used to manage its accounts is located in this building, specifically in Ethan Simmons' office." A murmur went around the table. The partners were flipping through the pages now. Marcus Thorne was reading fast. His face was becoming a thundercloud. Are you suggesting, Marcus said, looking up at me over his reading glasses, that a partner of this firm is embezzling client funds? I am not suggesting it. Marcus, I said, I am providing the bank tracing numbers. I looked at Brooke. Ms. Calder is here, I said. Perhaps she can explain why her firm was sending $20,000 kickbacks to a company controlled by the man who hired her. All eyes turned to Brooke. She looked trapped. She looked at Ethan, waiting for him to defend her, waiting for him to say, "It was all me. Leave her out of it." Ethan didn't look at her. He was staring at the report, reading his own obituary. Brooke's face crumbled. She realized, in that second, what I had realized in the hospital. She was disposable. She was just another layer of insulation for Ethan's ego and Ethan's wallet. I was just following instructions, Brooke whispered. Her voice was thin, terrified. Ethan said it was a tax strategy. He said it was for his new fund. Ethan slammed his hand on the table. "Shut up! Brooke!" he roared. The silence that followed was heavy. Marcus Thorne closed the report. He took off his glasses. He looked at Ethan with an expression of absolute disgust. "Ethan," Marcus said quietly, "you are suspended, effective immediately." Ethan stood up again. "Marcus, listen to me," he said. "It is not what it looks like. It was a bridge loan. I was going to pay it back. I had some liquidity issues with the crypto crash, and I just needed to bridge the gap until the bonus cycle." "You used client funds to cover gambling debts?" Marcus asked. "It wasn't gambling," Ethan cried. "It was high-risk arbitrage." Arthur Pence spoke up. "Security," Arthur said into his lapel microphone. "Boardroom A, now." Ethan looked around the room. He looked at the men he had worked with for 10 years. The men he had golfed with, the men he had toasted. They were looking at him like he was a stranger, like he was a disease. He looked at Brooke. She was crying now, quietly, into her hands. Then, finally, he looked at me. His eyes were red. He looked stripped down. The arrogance was gone. The brand was gone. "Leah," he said. He walked around the table. He came toward me. Marcus made a move to stop him, but I held up a hand. "It is okay," I said. Ethan stopped 3 feet from me. Can we talk?" he asked. "Just for a second? Outside?" I stood up. I walked to the door. I held it open. We stepped into the hallway. The glass door clicked shut, muffling the chaos erupting inside the room. Ethan leaned against the wall. He slid down a few inches, as if his legs could no longer hold him. "You did it," he said. He sounded amazed. "You actually did it." I didn't answer. I just watched him. I didn't mean for it to go this far. "Leah," he said. He looked at the floor. "I was scared. That is the truth." "Scared of what?" I asked. "Of being poor?" "No," he said. He looked up at me. His eyes were wet. "Of you, of the baby." He let out a shaky breath. "When you got pregnant, you changed. You became this mother. You were so complete. You and him. And I felt like a prop. Like I was just the wallet. I felt replaceable." He wiped his nose with the back of his hand. "Brooke made me feel important again. She made me feel like the main character. And then the money. I got in over my head, and I thought if I could just get out, start over, build something new, I could fix it." He looked at me pleadingly. "I didn't want to hurt you, Leah. I just wanted to escape. I chose cruelty because it was faster. I thought if I made you hate me, you would let me go easier." I listened to him. I listened to the psychology of a weak man. It made sense, in a twisted, pathetic way. It was real. He felt small, so he burned down our life to feel big. I looked at him, and I waited for the anger. I waited for the urge to scream, to scratch his face, to tell him he was garbage. But the anger was gone. It had burned itself out in the fire of the last 4 weeks. "I loved you, Ethan," I said softly. He flinched. "I loved you so much that when you handed me those papers, I almost believed you. I almost believed I was the problem." "Leah," he started. Reaching for my hand, I pulled back. Part of me still reacts to your voice, I admitted. Part of me wants to fix this for you. Because that is what I did. I fixed things. I made you feel safe. I stepped closer to him. But you taught me something important. Ethan, you taught me that love without safety is just a trap. You taught me that a man who feels small will destroy the woman who loves him just to feel tall again. I looked at the closed doors of the boardroom. I didn't choose revenge. I said, I chose structure. I chose math. Because math doesn't lie, and math doesn't cheat. 2 security guards appeared at the end of the hallway. They were walking briskly toward us. Ethan saw them. His shoulders sagged. What happens now? He asked. I don't know. I said, that is up to the partners and the district attorney. I turned to walk away. Leah, he called out. I stopped. Who are you? He asked. He sounded genuinely confused. You are not the woman I married. I looked back at him over my shoulder. No, I said, I am the woman you made. I walked to the elevator. I pressed the button. I didn't look back when the security guards reached him. I didn't watch them escort him out of his own building. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the lobby. 45 seconds down. When the doors opened, the air in the lobby felt different, lighter. I walked out through the revolving doors. Noah was waiting on the sidewalk. He was wearing his leather jacket, leaning against a brick wall, reading something on his phone. When he saw me, he put the phone away. He didn't smile immediately. He scanned my face, checking for damage. You okay? He asked. I took a deep breath. The city air smelled of exhaust and ocean salt. It smelled like freedom. I am okay, I said. Did you do it? I nodded. It is over. Noah pushed off the wall. He walked over to me. He didn't hug me. He just stood next to me, a solid, warm presence in a world that had felt flimsy for so long. Let's go get Leo, he said. I looked up at the glass tower one last time. I saw the lights on the 42nd floor. I imagined the shouting, the lawyers, the shredding of documents. I imagined Ethan sitting in a chair, realizing that he had traded a diamond for a piece of glass, and then smashed the glass too. I turned my back on the tower. I slipped my hand into Noah's. Let's go home, I said. And for the first time in a month, I knew exactly where that was. Thank you so much for listening to Leah's story. It was a journey from heartbreak to justice, and I hope it reminded you that sometimes the best revenge isn't making a scene, it's making a plan. I would love to know where you are listening from today. Are you in New York, London, Sydney, or somewhere quiet like Harbor Ridge? Please let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories. We have many more tales of betrayal and retribution coming your way. Don't forget to share your thoughts on Leah's decision. Did she go too far? Or did Ethan get exactly what he deserved? I can't wait to read your opinions in English in the comments. Until next time, stay strong.